After October 1st, Communist China began to enforce a wartime military drift.
For the first time, Hong Kong was included in the U.S. State Department's list of places for accepting incoming refugees.
Several large companies in Communist China began to lay off employees. The wave of unemployment has come.
According to the official media Daily Business News, Apple will relocate all 4 outsourcing factories from Communist China to India.
U.S. President Trump tweeted on October 2nd that he and First Lady Melania tested positive for the CCP-Virus. The U.S. stock market plunged after that.
On October 1, 2020, at Gannan in Heilongjiang Province, the farmers are struggling. This is already late autumn, but the floodwater in the field has yet to recede. Large areas of corn crops bent over and were soaked in the water. Life as farmers is so arduous. Who said this year has a good harvest?
The people lined up to file complaints, but the CCP only lied to them. In Communist China, the people didn't stay at home for Mid-Autumn Festival, but lined up to file complaints.
The CCP's police came to remove an American flag hung inside the house of this man. My behavior has nothing to do with the National Day. I'm displaying this flag for the Mid-Autumn Festival.
During the CCP's Evil National Day, the illegal police arrested many brave people in Hong Kong.
Hello to our friends participating in the new federal state of China's demonstrations on October 1st. Thank you for your contributions to the NFSC and the whistleblower movement. Thank you for taking the courageous path of spreading the truth. We, the NFSC and the whistleblower movement, we use the truth to show this world faces of the real Chinese people and the real Chinese spirit. We will spread the truth. We shall topple the sinister CCP regime. Thank you all for your contribution. We should be that piece of straw, the one that breaks CCP's back. Every piece of straw counts. It is our conviction that the power of truth will expel all darkness. We shall welcome the future that rightfully belongs to us. The new federal state of China's TV station will soon become a global brand. It will represent the power and voices of us Chinese people. We shall have our own platform where we can speak freely.
October the 1st is the founding day of the CCP. It is also the National Death Day of 1.4 million Chinese people. Today, we launched the October the 1st Global Parade protest against the CCP. Hundreds of millions of our comrades of the new federal state of China go to the street to protest. This is a protest against the CCP's crimes to the Chinese in the past 71 years. This is a shout from our hearts. Taking down the CCP is a need for justice. We comrades of the new federal state of China have been fulfilling our vows of June the 4th Declaration. That is, we need action, action, action. Taking down the CCP is need for justice. CCP, your day is over.
6四宣言的誓言，那就是我们要行动，行动，行动，消灭中共是正义的需要。共产党，你完了。
October 1st is the founding day of the evil CCP regime. It is also a disaster day for all Chinese people. On October 1st, 2020, the National Death Day of the Chinese people. Himalayan comrades in Spain, Japan, Taiwan, European countries, and the United States held an anti-communist parade. They demonstrated to the local communities the new outlook of the citizens of the new federal state of China. They publicized the truth about the CCP-Virus and revealed the ugly face of the evil CCP.
Been a century of silence, we gon' take it back. I'm just stating facts, tell you how it is. Ain't no way to change shit if we don't resist.
The lower house of the United States Congress has passed a legislation that would require U.S. companies to disclose if their supply chains are connected to forced labor in China's Xinjiang Uyghur region. The Uyghur Forced Labor Disclosure Act was passed by the U.S. House of Representatives. It will now head to the Senate for consideration. With this bill, U.S. companies have to disclose whether any of their supply chain can be traced to camps or factories suspected of using Uyghurs as forced labor.
You know, we have a tremendous number of Chinese students in the United States. It gets, numbers get bandied about all the time, particularly in our, engineering programs and STEM programs at the graduate level, especially. To me, this is a positive thing because we've always benefited from "quote unquote" the brain drain, where it benefits us. Yet at the same time, given where you sit, you have to be careful of the Chinese Communist Party's reach into those students. How do we balance that?
Yeah, it's not easy, but we're making every effort to balance it. Of the more than 400,000 Chinese students that are here, President Trump has taken action to target roughly 1% of that massive number, to target military-affiliated Chinese researchers who are, in some cases, here under false pretenses or even false identities. In other cases, simply here to target technologies that would be useful to China's military advancement or to the repression of their own people. And so we're practicing a little bit of surgery. It's a surgical approach.
Tokyo Stock Exchange suffered its worst ever glitch on Thursday. Trading was halted all day on the world's third biggest share market. The exchange blamed the outage on a hardware problem in its Arrowhead trading system. It said there was also a subsequent failure to switch over to a backup system. The glitch marked the first full-day suspension of the bourse since all electronic trading began in 1999. Smaller regional exchanges were also forced to suspend trading as they rely on the Tokyo systems. Japan Exchange Group, which runs the TSE, said it would replace hardware as part of steps to fix the problem. Supplier Fujitsu, which developed the trading system, says it is investigating what happened.
國殤日子咯。點解嘅？你點樣有咩慶祝啊？香港變到咁樣，有咩值得慶祝先？啱唔啱啊？我由而家呢一刻開始，我已經乜嘢唔會慶祝㗎啦，但求啲人可以平平安安，嗰啲警察唔出嚟最好咯，係佢唔出嚟，我哋最平安㗎。
Alibaba raised $25 billion in our markets and then used the money to buy huge chunks of Hollywood and Silicon Valley. We lost cutting-edge technology, and China began to control aspects of our culture. Do you wonder why Disney bowed to Chinese issues with their big-budget Mulan? They even thanked the Chinese Communist Party and the government security agencies that are known for repressing the local Muslim population and linked to atrocities like human organ harvesting and forced abortions. And that's just the most recent example of Chinese communist influence over American filmmaking. They also censored a patch on Tom Cruise's flight jacket in the new Top Gun movie. And they pretty much dictate a lot of what American movie watchers are able to see. In Silicon Valley, Alibaba bought sizable stakes in Lyft, Zulily, Fanatics, Jet.com, Snap, and Tango. Who knows how much they scooped up from smaller companies with promising technology? When you add it all together, as near as I can tell, the total is close to $25 billion. That's the money they took from us. That means that we gave them our money and they turned around to use it to buy up some of our most promising technologies and to buy Hollywood influence.
And it's costing us now, and this report is confirmation of that. Jack and Jack.
Yes, so hey, Jack, hang on for one second. I just want to say something. We're not apologists for Russia. It's run by the KGB. It's a kleptocracy. They're bad guys. They got nuclear weapons, and they're always trying to cause trouble. That being said, when you've got to weigh and measure and kind of set priorities, the CCP is an existential threat. It's probably the greatest enemy we've ever had with the greatest number of resources, and we've allowed them to infiltrate. Unrestricted warfare was published in 1999. They laid out the entire war plan 20-some years ago of economic warfare, technology warfare, information warfare, and potentially kinetic warfare in the South China Sea and up there on the border of Chinese-occupied Tibet with our Indian allies. So this is not, has been hiding in plain sight. And the intelligence apparatus should have been on this, but they willfully looked the other way, and they built Russia up to be 10 feet tall. Russia's not 10 feet tall. It's in a demographic death spiral. It doesn't make one product in the world in technology anybody wants. It's got some natural resources that, guess what? Our German allies are in business with them on natural gas and others, right? It's a sideshow, and Ukraine's a sideshow to a sideshow. The main event, the main thing is the Chinese Communist Party. This report today, and Raheem's exactly right. This is called Ben Smithing. I say, we were all over this. You put this report out that really highlighted it. Posobiec, tell us how phony this thing is.
Yeah, Steve, it's really amazing because as you read through some of it, I mean, it sounds like something that it sounds like a war room pandemic episode, right? Because the first line, China has sought to subvert international norms and institutions. I mean, that is something that you go back just a couple of months, you go back a couple of years, that's something you're only hearing from where? War room pandemic, you're hearing it, and you're hearing it from Donald J. Trump. You're hearing it in his campaign. You're hearing it from him from the campaign stage 2015, all of those primaries, all those debates that he went through. But, I've got to tell you something just from my own perspective as someone who was a China analyst in the IC for 8.5 years. I sat there for all that time watching as China was doing this. But meanwhile, the resources of our intelligence community, the resources of our military and our government, were spending trillions of dollars playing nation building and whack-a-mole in Afghanistan, in Somalia, in Yemen, all across the Middle East. And at the same time, China was expanding their influence across not only into our backyard in the United States, but also across the Asia Pacific in ways that haven't been seen since Imperial Japan in the 1930s. And all the while this was going, we were told, oh, don't worry about this. You know, your stuff isn't as important as this guy we're going after in Kandahar, or, you know, this one, you know, petty warlord that we're going to spend millions of dollars of munitions and hundreds of man hours going after because it's going to upset the balance of some local election in, you know, some province of Afghanistan. Like, do we ever step back and say what affects the well-being and the national security of the American citizen more? And it finally seemed, I mean, hopefully this is something where they're at least giving us that mea culpa, but really is, we've been saying this all along, and you denied it, you rejected it, and you let it grow. And in many cases, such as Joe Biden, but not just Joe Biden, right? They enabled this. They allowed this to fester, and they got rich from it. A lot of people got rich off of this, and that's the real reason that we were told to shut up and stand down.
Jack, real quickly, I know you got to run. You've given us an overtime segment here. You're a naval intel officer. You've been there for 8 years. You were there really working the problem. If you had to make a recommendation right now to the nation, not to the Republicans or Democrats, but what you think has to happen here with the intel's engagement regarding the Chinese Communist Party, what would you recommend?
The way that we treated the Soviet Union in the 1980s and the 1970s has to be the way we treat the CCP now.
What do you mean by that? As a mortal enemy?
Well, as someone where we spend the bulk of our funding, right? Everybody knows that in the intel game and in the military game, DoD acquisitions, it all comes down to funding and prioritization of funding, right? Why is it that certain ops get more funding than others, when certain centers get more funding than others, right? It's because of prioritization, it's because of Congress, and that's actually where these reports work. So I would go to the China centers, and I would be there and say,
I think we got a problem with Jack's mic here.
The mic off?
Yeah.
The kill switch.
I'm here.
The kill switch. You got him? I don't have him. I don't have him in mind.
The CCP.
They gave me the kill switch. Was that the kill switch? No, you've got the CCP. Look, they've infiltrated everywhere. They've infiltrated the war room.
Something wrong in mine.
You know, I want to say something here, Steve. I am in total agreement with Jack. I think we have to treat them like the Soviet Union. I'm going to repeat something I said last week from an article in the New York Times. Trump is wrong about TikTok. China's plans are much more sinister. Written by Yi Zhanglian, the former Hong Kong Economic Journal chief editor. And he writes, I quote, since China adopted the National Intelligence Law in June 2017, all Chinese citizens and companies have been under legal obligation to help the government gather intelligence and keep that cooperation secret. The law allows China's intelligence services to embed their people and devices or to requisition facilities in any premise, anywhere for that purpose. And this goes back, and I'm reminding again our Vietnam guys, right? You remember the three-man cells in South Vietnam? The Constitution of the Chinese Communist Party also essentially requires any company with at least 3 Communist Party members to form a cell tasked with carrying out the party's wishes. This is right from Mao's Little Red Book, people. And I think, in my opinion, I may not have the agreement with everybody on this at this table, but I think it's high time that we limit the number of mainland Chinese students who can study in North America. Think about it. We did not have 300,000 Soviet students studying here during the Cold War.
I think what we have to do, we're going to have the new federal state on at the bottom of the hour, but I think what we got to do is really drill down on how the CCP is using these students as intelligence asset. It's not the students' fault, but I think you're right. These agreements they have to sign, and we got to drill down on this. If they actually sign these agreements, they got to go back to some sort of handler every month. It all has to be questioned. We're gonna have the new federal state on the bottom of the hour. I want to thank Pasovic for giving us 15 minutes of overtime here to talk about intel.
I followed the procession the entire time. They didn't know. Then my security team told me it was safe for me to get out of the car. After my team agreed, I said I have to meet with them in person today. I have to do this. Because they risk their lives coming here. My heart won't be at ease if I don't meet with them. I can't go to Japan, New Zealand, or Canada. Taiwan is so far away, I can't go there either. But if they came to my doorstep, it wouldn't be right if I didn't go. Of course, my team told me the CCP might try to poison me. I said they'll do that regardless of the circumstance, but I must meet them. Now, President Trump has tested positive, both him and his wife. If I get to choose again tomorrow, I will go out as well, and I will meet and hug them even more. Otherwise, I won't be who I am. The whistleblower movement won't be what it is either. I have faith that this ordeal with President Trump and his wife, they will definitely make it through. I'm deeply convinced that they will make it. Getting infected with the virus is a trial for them, and this will greatly benefit the takedown of the CCP. Because if President Trump still won't take down the CCP even after all this, the CCP will take him down. And it won't just take him and his wife down, they'll take down his whole family. Considering how vicious the CCP is, they won't let Trump go ever. It became very clear after the debate that President Trump would definitely win the election. So how would the CCP make him lose and take him down? The last part of the 3-act plan is to kill you, right? They will definitely attempt that. Will the CCP do that to us? They have been trying just that the whole time. However, my friends, fear is at the core of all of CCP's weapons. Therefore, I must let go of my fears. Of course, every one of us must do this. But that is not the same as being careless. I believe in heaven's will. I believe in the force of the whistleblower movement. And I believe in my mission.
President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump test positive for COVID-19. Stock futures plunge after President Trump confirms he has coronavirus. European Medicines Agency starts rolling view of AstraZeneca Oxford COVID-19 vaccine candidate. Amazon says 19,816 U.S. workers tested positive for coronavirus. Two major U.S. airline companies are calling thousands of jobs as the pandemic continues to devastate the aviation industry and federal airplane stores. Italy records its highest increase in COVID-19 cases since late April. Research says loss of smell could be a highly reliable indicator of COVID-19 infection. World's poorest countries receive $150 million to prepare for delivery of COVID-19 vaccines.